Marcel leaned back in his chair, his weathered hands cradling a cup of steaming coffee as he gazed out at the bustling river port below. He had been working as a watchman here for nearly 2 decades, and in that time, he'd seen the ebb and flow of life on the water. From the grand cargo ships carrying goods from distant lands to the humble fishing boats of local fishermen, each vessel told a story of its own. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the port, Marcel's thoughts drifted to his other passion: music. Every evening, after his shift ended, he would make his way to a nearby restaurant where he played his guitar for the patrons. His fingers danced effortlessly across the strings, weaving melodies that seemed to echo the rhythm of the river itself. For Marcel, music was a form of expression, a way to connect with others and share in the joys and sorrows of life. But Marcel's talents didn't end there. On weekends, he would often moonlight at corporate parties, entertaining guests with his soulful tunes and infectious energy. It was a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of the river port, but Marcel embraced the opportunity to bring a little bit of joy into the lives of those around him. As he watched the lights of the port twinkle in the distance, Marcel couldn't help but feel grateful for the life he had built for himself. Though his days were filled with the steady rhythm of watchman duty, his nights were alive with the magic of music and laughter, and in that balance, he found contentment, knowing that he was exactly where he was meant to be. As Marcel sat in the quiet of the night, his thoughts turned to a more somber note. Despite the fulfillment he found in his work and music, there was a lingering ache in his heart for what he had lost. He couldn't help but think of his ex-wife, Maria, and their young son, Diego. Maria had been his high school sweetheart, and they had shared dreams of building a life together. But as the pressures of life mounted and financial struggles deepened, their relationship had crumbled under the weight of their burdens. Marcel's meager earnings as a watchman and musician were often not enough to provide for their family, and the strain had taken its toll on their marriage. Now, Marcel's visits with Diego were few and far between, filled with bittersweet moments of laughter and longing. He yearned to be more present in his son's life, to give him the opportunities and stability that he deserved. But the reality of his financial situation weighed heavily on him, leaving him feeling powerless to change their circumstances. As he sipped his coffee, Marcel couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that gnawed at him. He knew that he was doing the best he could with what he had, but it never felt like enough. The ache of longing for his family was a constant companion, a reminder of the sacrifices he had made in pursuit of his dreams. But even in the midst of his struggles, Marcel held on to hope. He knew that as long as he had his music and the love of his son, there was still a chance for brighter days ahead. And so, with a heavy heart and a determined spirit, he faced each new day with resolve, holding on to the belief that one day, things would get better. As Marcel sat at the port, lost in his thoughts, he noticed a young woman standing alone at the nearby bus stop. She seemed to be shivering slightly in the cool evening air, her jacket pulled tightly around her. Marcel's heart went out to her, recognizing the weariness and uncertainty in her posture. Without hesitation, Marcel rose from his seat and approached the girl at the bus stop. "Excuse me, miss," he said gently, "are you waiting for the bus?" The girl looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "Yes," she replied softly, "but it seems like it's taking forever to arrive." Marcel nodded sympathetically. "I understand. The buses can be unreliable sometimes, especially at this hour. Would you like a ride instead? I'm headed in that direction." The girl hesitated for a moment, clearly torn between accepting the offer from a stranger and continuing to wait for the bus. But something in Marcel's kind demeanor put her at ease, and she found herself nodding in agreement. "Thank you," she said, offering him a shy smile. "That would be wonderful." With that, Marcel led the way of his old pickup truck parked nearby. As they drove through the quiet streets, the girl shared snippets of her story with Marcel, about her struggles to make ends meet, her dreams for the future, and the challenges she faced on a daily basis. Marcel listened intently, offering words of encouragement and support along the way. He could see a spark of resilience and determination in the girl's eyes, a familiar fire that burned within him as well. By the time they reached her destination, the girl's demeanor had shifted from one of weariness to one of renewed hope. She thanked Marcel profusely for his kindness, promising to pay it forward whenever she could. As Marcel watched her disappear into the night, he couldn't help but smile. In that brief encounter, he had found a connection, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, a simple act of kindness could light the way forward. And as he drove back to the port, his heart felt a little lighter, knowing that he had made a difference in someone's life. if only for a moment. As Marcel drove back to the port, the encounter with the young woman lingered in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling of connection he had felt with her, and he found himself hoping that she would achieve all the dreams she had shared during their brief journey together. The next evening, as Marcel strummed his guitar in the restaurant, a familiar face caught his eye. It was the young woman from the bus stop. Her face lit up with excitement as she entered the establishment. Marcel couldn't help but smile as she made her way over to his table. "Hello again," she said warmly, taking a seat across from him. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I wanted to thank you once more for your kindness yesterday." Marcel waved off her gratitude with a humble smile. "It was my pleasure. I'm glad I could help." The young woman leaned in closer, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I have something to tell you," she said eagerly. "After our conversation yesterday, I couldn't stop thinking about how you encouraged me to pursue my dreams. So I've decided to take a leap of faith." Marcel's curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" "I'm a student at a culinary college," she explained, her excitement palpable. "But I've always been hesitant to fully commit to pursuing my passion for cooking. Your words reminded me that life is too short to hold back, so I've decided to throw myself into it wholeheartedly." Marcel couldn't help but feel a swell of pride at her courage. "That's wonderful news. I have no doubt that you'll achieve great things." As the evening wore on, Marcel and the young woman shared stories and laughter, forging a friendship rooted in mutual respect and admiration. And as Marcel played his guitar, the melody seemed to carry a new sense of hope and possibility, inspiring both him and his newfound friend to embrace the journey ahead, wherever it may lead. As Marcel continued to engage in conversation with the captivating young woman, he couldn't help but be taken aback by her allure. Her eyes sparkled with intelligence, and her smile was as warm as the sun on a summer's day. Yet despite his growing admiration for her, Marcel found himself at a loss, not knowing even the most basic details about her. Throughout their interaction, Marcel's mind raced with questions. Who was this enchanting woman sitting across from him? Where did she come from? What were her dreams, her aspirations? But with each passing moment, Marcel hesitated to pry, fearing that his inquiries might come across as intrusive or unwelcome. Instead, he chose to savor the present moment, basking in the easy camaraderie they shared as they swapped stories and laughed together. Yet beneath the surface, Marcel couldn't shake the curiosity that gnawed at him, urging him to delve deeper into the mystery of the woman before him. As the evening drew to a close, and they bid each other farewell, Marcel couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret. He longed to learn more about her, to uncover the secrets hidden behind her captivating smile. But for now, all he could do was wonder, his mind swirling with the possibilities of what might have been. As he made his way home, the memory of their encounter lingered in Marcel's thoughts, leaving him yearning for another chance to unravel the enigma of the mysterious woman who had captured his heart. Little did he know, their paths would soon cross again, leading to a revelation that would forever change the course of their lives. As Marcel made his way home, his mind still consumed with thoughts of the intriguing woman he had met at the restaurant, he noticed a commotion up ahead. Squinting through the dimly lit street, he saw the silhouette of a man approaching the young woman from earlier, his demeanor aggressive and menacing. Marcel's heart clenched in his chest as he quickened his pace, a sense of urgency propelling him forward. As he drew closer, he could hear raised voices and the sound of a struggle. Without hesitation, Marcel intervened, stepping between the man and the woman. "Hey, back off," he exclaimed, his voice firm and commanding. The man, clearly startled by Marcel's sudden appearance, hesitated for a moment before lunging forward, his fists clenched in rage. Marcel instinctively moved to shield the woman from harm, but before he could react, the man's blows began to rain down upon her. Horror washed over Marcel as he watched helplessly, his heart breaking at the sight of the woman he had just met being subjected to such violence. Anger surged through him, fueling his determination to put an end to the senseless assault. Summoning all of his strength, Marcel pushed the man away, creating enough distance to give the woman a chance to escape. "Run," he urged her, his voice filled with urgency. The woman scrambled to her feet, her eyes wide with fear as she darted away into the darkness. Marcel turned his attention back to the man, his fists clenched in readiness as he prepared to defend himself against the onslaught. But before another blow could be exchanged, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air, drawing the attention of both men. With a final menacing glare, the assailant turned and fled into the night, leaving Marcel alone in the wake of the chaos. As the adrenaline began to fade, Marcel's thoughts turned to the woman he had rescued. He hoped and prayed that she had managed to escape to safety, away from the clutches of her attacker. And as he stood there, bathed in the glow of the streetlights, Marcel knew that he would stop at nothing to ensure her well-being, no matter the cost. In the heat of the moment, Marcel's instincts took over. With a swift and decisive motion, he delivered a powerful blow to the assailant's liver, causing him to double over in agony. Before the man could recover, Marcel followed up with a precise strike to the neck, rendering him temporarily incapacitated. As the assailant crumpled to the ground, groaning in pain, Marcel stood over him, his chest heaving with exertion. He knew he had to act quickly to ensure the safety of the woman who had been the target of his violence. "Stay down," Marcel warned, his voice low and menacing. "If you come near her again, you'll regret it." The assailant, now subdued and defeated, nodded weakly in acknowledgement. A mixture of fear and pain etched across his face. Marcel watched him for a moment longer, ensuring that he posed no further threat, before turning his attention to the woman who had been the object of his aggression. He found her huddled nearby, trembling and visibly shaken by the ordeal. Without a word, Marcel approached her, offering a comforting hand and a reassuring smile. "Are you all right?" he asked gently, his concern evident in his voice. The woman nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, as she looked up at Marcel, with gratitude and relief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved me." Marcel's heart swelled with emotion as he wrapped her in a protective embrace, offering her solace and support in her moment of need. He knew that their paths had crossed for a reason, and he was determined to do everything in his power to ensure her safety and well-being. Together, they stood in the glow of the streetlights, two souls brought together by chance and bound by a shared experience of adversity and triumph. And as they faced the uncertain future that lay ahead, Marcel knew that he would always be there to protect and defend her, no matter what challenges they may face. As Marcel held the woman in his comforting embrace, he felt a sense of responsibility wash over him. He couldn't just leave her alone on the streets, vulnerable to further harm. Determined to ensure her safety, he gently pulled away and met her gaze with unwavering resolve. "You shouldn't spend the night out here," Marcel said firmly. "It's not safe. Let me take you somewhere you can rest for the night." The woman hesitated for a moment, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. But as she looked into Marcel's earnest gaze, she sensed a sincerity and trustworthiness that put her at ease. With a nod of gratitude, she accepted his offer. "Thank you," she murmured softly. "I don't know what I would do without your help." Marcel offered her a reassuring smile before leading her back to his truck. With a sense of purpose, he drove them to the train station, where he escorted her inside to the waiting room. Though sparse and utilitarian, it offered a temporary refuge from the dangers of the night. "I'll stay with you until the morning," Marcel assured her, his voice gentle yet resolute. "You'll be safe here." The woman nodded gratefully, her expression reflecting a mix of exhaustion and relief. As she settled onto one of the benches, Marcel remained by her side, a silent guardian watching over her as she drifted into a fitful sleep. Throughout the night, Marcel kept a vigilant watch, his senses attuned to any sign of trouble. But as the hours passed without incident, he found himself reflecting on the events of the evening and the unexpected bond that had formed between them. In the quiet solitude of the train station, Marcel realized that their encounter had been more than just a chance meeting. It was a reminder of the inherent kindness and compassion that existed in the world, waiting to be shared with those in need. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, Marcel roused the woman from her slumber, gently waking her with a gentle touch and a warm smile. "It's time to go," he said softly. "I'll make sure you get home safely." With a renewed sense of hope and gratitude, the woman followed Marcel out of the train station and into the new day, knowing that she had found not only a protector, but also a friend in the kind-hearted watchman who had come to her rescue. As Marcel escorted the woman out of the train station into the crisp morning air, he couldn't help but feel a pang of surprise. The city was dotted with hotels and lodgings, each offering a semblance of comfort and security. Yet the woman had chosen to spend the night in the stark confines of the train station's waiting room. "Are you sure you wouldn't prefer to stay somewhere more comfortable?" Marcel asked gently, his concern evident in his voice. The woman hesitated, her gaze cast downward as she struggled to find the right words. "I don't have much money," she admitted quietly, "and I didn't want to burden you with the expense." Marcel's heart went out to her, understanding the weight of financial hardship all too well. But as he looked into her weary eyes, he knew that her safety and well-being were worth far more than any monetary cost. "You're not a burden," Marcel said firmly, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You deserve to be safe and comfortable. Let me help you find a place to stay." With that, Marcel led the woman to his truck once again, determined to find her a place where she could rest and recuperate without worry. Together, they drove through the city streets, searching for a hotel or inn that could offer her refuge. After several attempts, they finally found a modest hotel with a warm and inviting atmosphere. Marcel helped the woman check in, ensuring that she had everything she needed for a comfortable stay. As they parted ways outside the hotel, Marcel couldn't shake the feeling of gratitude that swelled within him. Despite the challenges they had faced, they had come together to overcome adversity and find solace in each other's company. "Thank you, Marcel," the woman said softly, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You've been my guardian angel." Marcel smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment wash over him. "Anytime," he replied. "Take care of yourself, okay?" With a final wave, Marcel watched as the woman disappeared into the hotel, knowing that she was in good hands, and as he made his way back to the riverport, a sense of satisfaction filled his heart, knowing that he had made a difference in someone's life, even if just for a moment. As Marcel returned to the riverport after ensuring the woman's safety at the hotel, his mind buzzed with a whirlwind of emotions. He couldn't shake the feeling of familiarity that lingered at the back of his mind, a nagging sense that he had encountered the woman before their chance meeting at the bus stop. As he resumed his duties as a watchman, the memory of their encounter played on a loop in Marcel's mind. He couldn't help but wonder about the woman's past, about the trials and tribulations that had brought her to this moment in time. Lost in thought, Marcel absent-mindedly made his rounds along the docks, his eyes scanning the bustling activity of the riverport. But amidst the flurry of activity, something caught his eye. A flash of movement, a familiar silhouette standing near the edge of the dock. Heart pounding with anticipation, Marcel approached cautiously, his steps faltering as he recognized the woman from the train station. Her back was turned to him, her gaze fixed on the rippling waters of the river below. "Sophia," Marcel called out tentatively, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman turned, her eyes widening in surprise, as she registered Marcel's presence. "Marcel?" she exclaimed, a mixture of astonishment and delight evident in her voice. In that moment, recognition dawned on Marcel, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Sophia, the mysterious woman he had met at the bus stop, the culinary student with dreams of her own. How could he have not recognized her sooner? As they stood face to face once again, Marcel felt a surge of joy and relief wash over him. Though their paths had crossed in unexpected ways, fate had brought them together once more, binding them in a bond that transcended time and circumstance. With a warm smile, Marcel extended his hand to Sophia, a silent invitation to join him in the dance of life, and as they stood side by side on the riverport, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Marcel knew that their journey was far from over. But together, they could weather any storm that came their way. As Marcel continued his duties as a watchman, his mind remained preoccupied with thoughts of Sophia. The memory of their chance encounter at the train station lingered in his thoughts, filling him with a sense of urgency and concern. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the riverport began to quieten, Marcel's unease grew. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that Sophia's absence weighed heavily on his heart. With a determined resolve, Marcel made the decision to find her. Leaving his post at the riverport, he set off into the city streets, retracing their steps from the night before in search of any sign of her presence. As he walked, Marcel's mind raced with worry and anticipation. He scanned the bustling crowds, hoping to catch a glimpse of Sophia's familiar figure amidst the throng of people. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of searching, Marcel's efforts paid off. He spotted Sophia standing on a busy street corner, her eyes fixed on something in the distance, a look of determination etched on her face. "Sophia!" Marcel called out, relief flooding through him as he rushed to her side. Sophia turned, her expression softening with surprise and gratitude as she caught sight of Marcel. "Marcel, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. "I was worried about you," Marcel admitted, his concern evident in his voice. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." Sophia smiled, touched by Marcel's gesture of kindness. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm fine, really. I just needed some time to clear my head." Marcel nodded, understanding the need for solitude and reflection. "I'm glad to hear that," he replied. "But if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here for you." With a sense of relief and reassurance, Marcel and Sophia continued their journey through the city streets, their bond strengthened by the shared experience of adversity and triumph. And as they walked side by side into the night, Marcel knew that their friendship was a beacon of light in the darkness, guiding them through whatever challenges lay ahead. As Marcel approached Sophia on the busy street corner, relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. Just as he reached her, he noticed a commotion nearby. His heart sank as he saw Sophia being accosted by two men, their intentions unclear. Reacting instinctively, Marcel rushed to Sophia's side, ready to intervene. But before he could reach her, one of the men brandished a gleaming knife, his eyes filled with malice. "Back off, old man," the man growled, his voice dripping with menace. "This doesn't concern you." Marcel's heart pounded in his chest as he weighed his options. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, urging him to fight back, to protect Sophia at all costs. But he knew that confronting an armed assailant was a dangerous gamble. With a steely resolve, Marcel held his ground, his gaze locked with the man's in a silent standoff. He could see the fear and desperation in Sophia's eyes, urging him to act, to do whatever it took to keep her safe. "Sophia, come with me," Marcel said firmly, his voice unwavering despite the fear that gnawed at him. But before Sophia could respond, the situation escalated. The man with the knife lunged forward, his blade glinting in the dim light of the street. Marcel acted on instinct, throwing himself between Sophia and her assailant, his arms outstretched in a desperate bid to shield her from harm. The sound of the knife slicing through the air was deafening, followed by a sharp, searing pain as it made contact with Marcel's side. He staggered back, his breath catching in his throat as he felt the warmth of his own blood trickling down his skin. Despite the agony coursing through his body, Marcel refused to give in. With a fierce determination, he faced his attacker head-on, his resolve unyielding in the face of adversity. "Sophia, run!" Marcel shouted, his voice raw with emotion. With a final glance over her shoulder, Sophia fled into the night, her footsteps echoing in the distance. Left alone with his assailant, Marcel braced himself for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that the battle for Sophia's safety was far from over. Despite the searing pain in his side, Marcel refused to back down. With every ounce of strength he could muster, he fended off the assailant's attacks, dodging and deflecting the knife with a mixture of agility and determination. As the confrontation reached its climax, Marcel seized an opportunity to disarm his assailant, knocking the knife from his grasp with a swift and decisive blow. With the threat neutralized, Marcel wasted no time in taking action. "Get out of here," Marcel growled, his voice laced with authority as he glared at the assailant. "And don't you dare come near her again." The man, realizing he was outnumbered and outmatched, scrambled to his feet and fled into the night, leaving Marcel alone in the aftermath of the confrontation. With a deep sigh of relief, Marcel turned his attention to Sophia, who stood nearby, her eyes wide with shock and fear. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice soft with concern. Sophia nodded, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she tried to process the events that had just unfolded. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Without another word, Marcel gently guided Sophia away from the scene, his arm wrapped protectively around her as they made their way through the city streets. With each step, the weight of their shared ordeal hung heavy in the air, but so too did a sense of resilience and determination. As they reached Sophia's home, Marcel helped her inside, ensuring that she was safe and secure before bidding her good night. Despite the late hour, Marcel knew that he couldn't rest until he was certain that Sophia was out of harm's way. "I'll stay here tonight," Marcel insisted, his voice firm with conviction. "You shouldn't be alone after everything that's happened." Sophia nodded gratefully, her eyes brimming with gratitude, as she led Marcel to a spare room where he could spend the night. As they settled in for the evening, a sense of peace washed over them, knowing that they had faced adversity together and emerged stronger for it. In the quiet of the night, Marcel found himself reflecting on the events that had brought them together, marveling at the resilience and courage of the woman who had captured his heart. And as he drifted off to sleep, he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would always be there to protect and support Sophia, just as she had done for him. As Marcel settled into the spare room for the night, the memories of his past weighed heavily on his mind. With a heavy heart, he found himself opening up to Sophia, sharing the painful story of his ex-wife and the son he had lost. "It's been years since Maria left," Marcel began, his voice tinged with sorrow. "But the pain never truly goes away. She took everything from me, my home, my livelihood, and worst of all, she took Diego." Sophia listened intently, her eyes filled with compassion as Marcel recounted the tumultuous events that had torn his family apart. He spoke of the financial struggles and emotional turmoil that had plagued their marriage, of the bitter custody battle that had left him shattered and broken. "It's been a constant battle just to stay afloat," Marcel admitted, his voice cracking with emotion. "But no matter how hard I try, it never feels like enough. I miss him every single day." Sophia reached out, placing a comforting hand on Marcel's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Marcel," she said softly. "No one deserves to go through something like that." In that moment, Marcel felt a wave of gratitude wash over him, grateful for the opportunity to share his pain with someone who understood. Despite the darkness that had clouded his past, he found solace in the warmth of Sophia's presence, a beacon of light in his darkest hour. As the night wore on, Marcel and Sophia talked long into the early hours of the morning, finding comfort in each other's company. And as Marcel drifted off to sleep, he knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, he would always have Sophia by his side, a source of strength and support in the face of adversity. As Marcel shared more of his story with Sophia, he couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness as he recalled the events that had led to the demise of his music group. He recounted how Maria had become the producer of their band, promising to elevate their careers to new heights. At first, everything seemed to be going well, Marcel explained, his voice tinged with regret. But then she started getting too close to one of the other musicians. "I should have seen the signs, but I was blinded by my love for her." Sophia listened intently, her expression filled with empathy, as Marcel revealed the painful truth of his past. He spoke of the betrayal and heartache he had endured, watching helplessly as his dreams crumbled before his eyes. "It was like a knife to the heart," Marcel admitted, his voice heavy with sorrow. "To see the woman I love betray me in such a cruel way, it shattered me." As Marcel spoke, Sophia's own experiences echoed in her mind, memories of her own struggles and heartbreaks rising to the surface. Despite the pain they had both endured, they found solace in the shared understanding of their pasts. "I'm so sorry, Marcel," Sophia said softly, her voice filled with compassion. "No one deserves to be treated that way." In that moment, Marcel felt a glimmer of hope flicker to life within him, buoyed by the kindness and understanding of the woman who sat beside him. Despite the scars of his past, he knew that he was not alone, and that together, they could find healing and redemption in the music they shared. As the night stretched on, Marcel and Sophia found comfort in each other's company, their shared experiences forging a bond that transcended the pain of their pasts. And as they drifted off to sleep, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, hand in hand, united in their journey of healing and self-discovery. As the night wore on, Marcel's thoughts lingered on the painful aftermath of his failed marriage. With a heavy heart, he recounted the devastating losses he had suffered in the wake of Maria's betrayal. "After everything fell apart, I was left with nothing," Marcel confessed, his voice filled with anguish. "I lost my apartment, my car, and worst of all, I lost custody of Diego." Sophia listened in silence, her heart aching for Marcel as he shared the depths of his despair. She could feel the weight of his pain, the burden of loss and longing that threatened to consume him. "I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for you," Sophia murmured, her voice soft with sympathy. "To lose everything you held dear, all because of someone else's betrayal." Marcel nodded, his eyes clouded with tears as he relived the heartache of his past. Despite the passage of time, the wounds remained fresh, a constant reminder of the shattered dreams and broken promises that had once defined his life. "But I refuse to let it define me," Marcel declared, his voice tinged with determination. "I may have lost everything, but I refuse to lose hope. Someday, I'll find a way to make things right, to reclaim what was taken from me." Sophia reached out, gently squeezing Marcel's hand in a gesture of solidarity. "You're stronger than you realize, Marcel," she assured him. "And you don't have to face this alone. I'll be here for you, every step of the way." In that moment, Marcel felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, fueled by Sophia's unwavering support. Despite the darkness that had threatened to consume him, he knew that with Sophia by his side, he had the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they settled into a peaceful silence, the weight of their shared burdens lifted ever so slightly, replaced by a newfound sense of resilience and determination. And as they drifted off to sleep, they knew that no matter what trials awaited them, they would face them together, united in their journey toward healing and redemption.